So I'm just going to kind of share my screen real quick, and we'll talk about are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So let's go with Slack, and I think everyone got added to this Build Week full-time channel, BW_FT. It's going to kind of be your one-stop shop for anything Build Week related. If you have questions about like Build Week and all that other kind of stuff. There is also a BW_help_iOS. It's kind of a more specific help channel for Build Week stuff. As always, you can still use, just the regular
Stop.
cohort help channel. And the cohort help channels and like direct messaging your project manager or your team lead. So let's go to this Build Week full time here. And generally what you're going to want to do is open the Notion doc for these product list. And what you're looking for is this purple iOS tag. We're going to go ahead and also open up the Airtable. So we have both these links open. You're looking for 6 projects that you'd be interested in, working on. There's no guarantee that you would actually like get on your #1 project, but I think they're gonna try to work to make sure that, like, say I pick Anywhere Fitness as my #1, and this Better Professor is my #2. If there's not like a whole bunch of people who also have this as their #1, you're pretty much gonna get the product that you want. But if everybody's picking a specific #1, they're gonna break that down. There's a couple iOS. There's like a how-to food truck tracker, replay, water my plants, Wonderlist. So there's a couple pretty good projects in here.
Where are these actually coming from?
The Build Week team, like the big team in charge of Build Weeks, they've put together, and like the Build Week team, the instructors, and like the curriculum staff have put these together to kind of gauge where you would be at for each unit. So this is like, the Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3 product list. But each Build Week, they're going to add and take stuff out and, put new stuff in. So I guess kind of to answer your question, it's not like a specific like company product, it's curriculum products. So you'll have a rubric to kind of go by for Unit 2, where you have like, different stars and different levels of, like you'll have like a 2 or a 3, kind of how we do our grading in general. So I think in this unit, you're going to have to use like core data, networking, that kind of stuff. So you'll pick a product and like try to hit these rubric goals, but like in Unit 3, you're going to have to do, some more stuff on top of core data and networking. If that helps at all. But yeah, that's what these are. So generally when you're going to come in here and put your name, track, your SLTLs, and just kind of fill out this form in general. And that's how you would sign up for this. These are due at 2 p.m. Lambda time, so in 2 hours. So go ahead and just eyeball this list. I've pinned it in my Slack channel if you're in my cohort or in my team, and it's also in the Build Week full-time channel, so here. There's also, I've pinned this as well, but there's the full-time Build Week student manual. So this is kind of a good reference for, different links and stuff like that. It kind of gives you some milestones, which I guess are broken. That's fun. But your project rubric is going to, pretty much be the same thing I'm looking at whenever, we're grading and going over these build week projects. So you can see that like to get a 2 and to pass your unit assessment, you'll need to hit at least a 2 on every one of these rubric points. To get a 3 on a build week, I think you'll have to hit more than 50% of 3s. So like you could do, this networking code and do like data tasks and all this kind of stuff and get a 3 on networking. But if everything else is a 2, you'll still get a 2. You have to get more than like half of the rubric points as a 3 to get a 3. That makes any sense. So that's kind of where you'll be looking for kind of the goals to go by. Let's see here. I have to go back one more page.
And did you say you'll be pasting those links?
Yeah. So once I get done, I'm gonna grab all the links and stuff and give them to Kenny so he can pin it in his channel, and I've already pinned these in my channel.
Oh, great. Thanks.
So there's a lot of like FAQs and stuff on this student manual for build weeks. If you have any questions about like oddball cases or something you can't find in the manual, like feel free to message me and I can generally find it. I have a lot of bookmarks, but I'll have to kind of dig through a little bit to get the right one. Something else too, instead of like, at least this is like my experience with build weeks. We didn't do like our typical team stand-ups. We did it with our project managers. So the project manager is going to be like who you're doing stand-up with in the morning, who you're doing stand-up with in the afternoon, because they're the ones that are kind of like in charge of that entire project. Like your TL, me or Kenny, will still be around, like we'll be able to help and do all this other kind of stuff. So if you need anything, like feel free to reach out to us at any time. That's kind of what we're here for, is to help you out. I can't really like give you like full answers. It's still kind of have that same mentality that you would have during like a sprint challenge. I can't give you the exact code, but I can kind of help you along the way. So that's kind of going to be my go-to for like how to help if you have questions. Something really important too, if you're working with multiple iOS developers. Let me see here. So during my last build week, there were 3 iOS people that were all working in the same group, and we ran into a bunch of merge conflicts. So kind of just a little tip or trick is to work specifically in like a specific file. And before if you're working in one location and somebody else is working in another, but they want to work in where you're working, always make sure to make regular commits and pull those changes down before you start working in a place that somebody else has been working. Otherwise, you'll end up with a merge conflict. So generally, before you would go and do your add, commit, and push, like go ahead and pull changes down to get the most recent if you're merging into master, so that you don't end up with a merge conflict. If that helps at all. So hopefully that. We won't run into too many merge conflicts, but I'm expecting at least a couple. So it's no big deal if you do have a merge conflict.
Communication is huge too. Let your teammate know like what file you're working in, let them know when you're making pushes. And so it really helps kind of resolve some of the conflicts that can happen if you're on the same page.
It's also a good idea to like have a singular platform for how you're managing merges. So the way we typically did, like master is our like release branch. We had, we each had our own branch that we were working in. We had this safety branch, which is where we would push changes to before we committed them to master. We would only merge from the safety branch into master. So if this branch got messed up at all, our master, which was, our work for the day that was like for sure good, never got messed up. So we could always, revert back to a previous state of this safety branch, and not have to worry about master, our release, being destroyed by some kind of weird merge conflict or storyboard XML issue, or some, the weirdness that happens when you're working in a team. So it's a good idea to have at least one level of safety before you push into your release. That's kind of just, I guess for any project, it's always a good idea to have master be your, like, this is absolutely for sure going to work, and I'm not going to touch it unless I'm pushing changes that I know will not break it. And that's where you have that next step down and have this release branch to kind of work with that. If you wanted to do, like, you can do pull requests in GitHub itself to kind of have that record of what's being merged, what commits are being changed, instead of kind of doing it through terminal and merging in terminal. I prefer to kind of do it through GitHub because there is that record, and you'll also have access to the GitHub pull request, like the manager. If there is a merge conflict, you have that GitHub-based conflict tool that you can work with on that as well. So.
Yeah, that's much easier than trying to manage it in the terminal or even in the file itself sometimes.
Yeah. Once you kind of understand what you're looking at with a merge conflict, it becomes a lot easier to handle. It is kind of a weird way that it's laid out because there's a whole bunch of lines and everything going everywhere. So if you run into issues with merges, I'm halfway decent at trying to, I can resolve them pretty quickly. But I might say, like, you might just have to, do a hard reset back to a previous commit. So on that point, anytime you finish a feature, just commit it immediately. Like, if it's working, commit it. You can always go back, but if something breaks and you don't have a commit, you're going to lose a whole lot of work, and it's going to set you back quite a bit. So we're trying to avoid that happening. But yeah. I think that's about it. Make sure to sign up before 4 or 2 o'clock Lambda time. So in about an hour and a half, they're going to close signups. So take a look at what you would want to work on, fill out this Airtable, get it submitted, and you'll be good to go. And we'll have Q&A today for Sprint Challenge, and then kickoff is Friday after the Sprint Challenge. Kenny, you want to add anything before we go?
Just the biggest thing for me during build weeks has always been communication. Communication is key, like being in constant contact with your partner, let them know what's going on. A big source of merge conflicts can be the PBX proj file itself, and that can just happen from moving files to different groups and things. And you have different versions running around. So communicate with your partner when you start and say, hey, this is how I think we should do our file structure. What do you think? Agree on something and work with that from there. Yeah.
Kind of how, let me kind of open up an Xcode test project really quick. I want to show you a little trick that you can do. So let's say that I'm working in this journal app. What you can do is you can have like model view controller, but group it. Like, say I'm working with Kenny. So if Kenny's working on the models, he puts it into Kenny's stuff subfolder, and he only touches things that are in Kenny's stuff. I'm gonna only touch things that are in my group. So we never have that conflict where Kenny changed something by pulling it, this model into a different folder. The project, like proj B file, is going to freak out and say, hey, this is in a wrong spot. But as long as you're committing within that extra step down, you won't run into those issues. So you can have like say Kenny's going to work specifically on today, this entry table view cell. He will create that in his subgroup, like his subfolder, of, Kenny's views. Like, he'll create that in this folder, and whenever he's done with the table view cell, he's going to push that to GitHub. I'll pull the changes down, and I'll have access to everything that he wrote. So say I'm going to work on something like, just a random group, like feature 1. I'll do all my work in feature 1. Whenever I'm done, I'll push it to GitHub. Kenny pulls it, and we're not going to have that merge conflict when we push this into master, or into our step down from master release branch. So breaking up your teamwork and your groups into individual subfolders prevents a ton of merge conflicts. So that's kind of a little trick you can pull on Xcode to keep it from freaking out too bad.
No, I never thought of that. That's a good idea.
There are inevitably going to be some shared folders and some shared files, but as long as, if you're making frequent commits and your partner is pulling frequently, you shouldn't have a ton of merge conflicts. I would say probably every 30 minutes, push your work, pull down anything your partner might have changed, and continue on. Because if you work for 6 hours, you might have a whole bunch of folders that have been moved or changed. Storyboards are super notorious for being a pain to work with, because if I go like this and scoot this, that changes the storyboard file. And if I try to push this into something, and merge it into master that doesn't keep track of this change here, it's going to give me a merge conflict because it changed the XML. So the smallest changes to storyboards can create issues if you're not working on the same version of the storyboard. So.
And storyboard conflicts are the worst because it's pure XML. You have to parse XML to figure out what the difference is.
Typically what I'll try to do is use storyboard references and create different storyboards themselves. Instead of having one main.storyboard, I'll have, this main.storyboard, and that's only for the table view controller. I'll make a reference for, this detail view controller, and then a reference to the other navigation controller. So that way, instead of breaking an entire storyboard, you'll only break a small portion of it. And if you need to revert something, it's not going to destroy your entire storyboard. So breaking it up with storyboard references and creating different storyboard files is a good way to get around a lot of the merge conflicts that occur with, a main.storyboard layout. Because it is super finicky. If I scoot, if I pull this stack view down just a little bit, it changes the whole file. It's very finicky. So
isn't that only if you add it to the change?
Sorry, can you say that again, Cameron?
Isn't that only if it adds it to the change? If you add the storyboard change, then it would create a conflict? Or
yeah, so let's say Kenny and I are working on this project in this state, right? And I'm like, I don't like the way this is set up. I'm going to move this, over here for whatever reason. And I push this into our release branch, which is a step beneath master. Kenny doesn't pull the changes from GitHub, and his storyboard looks, like the original. When he goes to push that into this release branch, it's going to create a merge conflict. Because what it's saying is on the line where this should be, in GitHub, it's over here. But on the merge, it's over here. And it's going to say, well, what do you want me to do? So merge conflicts are created when you try to push your changes and merge it into a file, into a GitHub repository, where the line by line is different from what currently exists in that exact same location. So if I change this update views to update views 2, Kenny doesn't pull those changes down to his local repository. So his will say update views. And he tries to push that into the repository, it's going to create a merge conflict on this line. So that's why it's always good to pull your partner's changes before you commit. That makes sense at all?
Yeah, it did.
Cool.
Like the T-shirt says, in case of fire, pull. What is it? Pull, commit, push, exit building.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. So just always make sure to, if you're getting ready to commit and push and merge, that you pull the changes that your partner has made. Otherwise, you'll run into merge conflicts. Anything else you want to add, Kenny?
No, you did a great job.
All right. Well, cool. Does anyone have any questions before we head out? All right. Good luck. See you at Q&A and carry on with your day.